Well, why is it that some people build extraordinary things in their lifetimes and others don't? Why is it that some people are totally focused on making extraordinary things happen with their lives and others aren't? Some have got a clockmaker or clock builder's approach to life, and others are just in and out very quickly. They have no real desire to build anything that becomes a legacy in years to come. So what I'd do is I would go into these two types of thinking humans and just give you an indication of just what's really happening in the world. So we have individuals that are what they call the master numbers, and they are extraordinary people who are master builders. They are here to leave things with great longevity behind, and they approach life in a way that asks questions like, where am I going with what my thoughts are? Where am I going with my vision? They're very much about vision building. You look at great individuals like John D. Rockefeller, people like Larry Page, Sergey Brin, and even people that are extraordinarily large in their scope. People like Solly Kersner, who I did work for, and extraordinary people who, like George Lucas as an example, and Walt Disney, people that are visionaries. They really take what's been done before and they had a whole new level of possibility to the equation, to the mix. So how do you leave something of notable value behind? Well, you have to go for the landmarks, the milestones, the things that are in place, that are extraordinary already in the world, that are available for you to continually develop. There's a strong preference towards land, towards property, towards buying property and developing property. There are very few obstacles that they can't contend with, that they don't contend with. They have a real desire to not just be consumers, but to be producers, people that are developing things on an ongoing and regular basis. And they tend to have this desire to see the world a different place. So from day one, they see things differently. I think you two summarized it when they spoke about Steve Jobs and his ability to see the world completely differently to everybody else. Steve Jobs was so in the belief that the world that he was living in was so different to the world that he really was living in, that he actually transformed it. He changed it. He made it a greater place, a better place for us to live in. Some would argue that by method of smart technology, smart tech, by method of the fact that our lives have become a little bit more connected, perhaps, maybe not. Actually, I think it's the other way around. I think we've definitely lost our ability to connect with, human to human, person to person. I think that's definitely become an issue. People are not connecting like they used to anymore. And so these kinds of individuals tend to have a very strong belief in pulling humanity up to a new level. They see life beyond just their own personal issues and ambitions. They see things from the perspective of how will history see their exploits. When I read Ayn Rand, her different books, I got to sort of get a little bit of a different understanding about what it's like to live every day like everybody else and what it's like to live every day on the journey to accomplishing something extraordinary, to accomplishing something very, very big in this life. So where we're at the moment, of course, is that we really need to pay attention to life's miracle, right? We need to accept the way life is for what it is, but we also need to ask ourselves the question, where's humanity going, right? So we need to cast our imagination toward places that are greater. Perhaps a moon landing is in good order. Perhaps there hasn't been anything happening with the moon program since the last trip, which was several decades ago. So we need to look at a first travel to Mars, manned craft to Mars. But we need to look at the rest of the solar system, which I believe is potentially teeming with life. It is teeming with life. Right here in our backyard. What are we leaving behind? What are we building? What communities are we building for the future? What real impact are we going to have? Now, it's interesting because it all starts with small building units. You just got to start with something small. You got to start with what you're doing every day. I look at somebody like Stan Lee as an example with Marvel Entertainment, and I look at the extraordinary way in which Stan Lee was able to change our perception of kids' entertainment by virtue of this thing he started off when he's sort of early 50s, late 40s. I mean, he only really got Marvel underway at that time in his life. It took decades before, they built something that has become quite literally the billion-dollar empire under Ike Perlmutter's chief executive officership. So things definitely are at work on a much grander scale in the minds, in the heads of individuals that are coming at it with this perspective of clock building, of doing something extraordinary. So I personally believe that it is to our advantage to really lay out the big plan, but then go to the smaller units and see how we can make changes to the world, but in very, very small ways, with absolute dedicated and concentrated attention. Always be looking at opportunities, and always be looking at those opportunities from the perspective of, single units, right? So you're doing things in incremental amounts. You do something that's valuable and important. You go to the next level. You do something that's valuable and important, and you keep doing those things until it all starts to work to your advantage. Okay, and also to the advantage of humanity. But you must be giving value. One of the extraordinary things about life, and it sort of works to your advantage if you stay on this course, is to keep doing good, keep doing good, keep doing good. Add value continually, always, and everything you do, be building it so that you are building systems along the way. You're not just doing one time the effort with no times the return, but you're actually, every effort is a system. You create a system. So you don't just do the thing, but you do it within a system. You create a system for it. So suddenly you have a system for every single thing that you're doing. And what that does, of course, is that has this phenomenal impact on the rest of your life, on everything else that you do. More about this later.